I'm David Kaus. Thank you for joining us for our May edition of our Kentucky K-12 CIO EdTech Leaders webcast. I've sent you the agenda and a summary of last month, and also we have 7 Go Soapbox questions for you and 3 discussion questions that we would like for you to respond to throughout the webcast that we intend on sharing. We have 2 different audiences joining us. One is by teams, and that is our district EdTech leaders and CIOs, and our OET, Office of Education Technology staff. And then we also broadcast by YouTube to all of our Kentucky Education Technology System KETS partners. That includes educational cooperatives and our EdTech partners and our state government agency partners. So thanks for everyone joining us here in May as we wind down yet another school year. X percentage of districts have completed their school year. The remaining ones are very close to crossing the finish line, but we know in education technology, there is no break for summer break. Typically in education technology, we're doing a lot of work in the summer, getting prepared for the brand new school year to start. But I would like to start out with today, welcoming the newest member to our Office of Education Technology leadership team. Matt Jury is our new division director and also our Kentucky K-12 Chief Technology Officer. Matt is no stranger to OET. I would have to say that I was really pleased at the amount of applicants we got and the quality of them. In fact, the final 5 that we went through is I would like someday to have all 5 of those working in Office of Education Technology. They were that high a quality of folks. But at the end of the day, Matt Jury was selected. Going through that, and congratulations, Matt, and thanks for joining us. If you get a little bit of your background for the folks that may not be aware of all the different roles you played for us in the Office of Education Technology.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, David. So I know that we always have, turnover, but every time I go to a conference, I see folks that I've seen for years, but I also see new faces. So we don't want to make the assumption that anybody knows who I am, because even though I've been around since 2006. I started with the KETS service desk as a team lead in 2006, and did that for about a year, and then moved up to an operations manager role, which was overseeing the KETS service desk and then all of the break fix folks within KDE, as well as change management. Then moved over to assistant director, worked directly under Phil, his assistant director, for Division of Operations and Services at the time. It's now still the same division, now called School Technology Services. I was his assistant director for 6 years, and then looked for another change and had opportunity to move to the KETS field staff as a KETS regional engineer for Region 7 in Eastern Kentucky. So I've been doing that for almost 7 years. And then another opportunity came up where Phil's retiring back in December, and this position came open. Decided to put my name in the hat. And as far as I was concerned, it was a win-win situation. And if I needed to stay in Region 7 for the rest of my career, I was completely content and happy to do that. But if there was a compelling reason and folks wanted me back in Frankfort to lead the work that we have going on statewide, then I was more than happy to do that as well. And it just worked out that that's exactly how it happened. And as of the 16th, which I believe was last Thursday, I'm officially the division director now, and I continue to serve Region 7 as their KETS engineer in the interim. They gave me an awesome going away party, a little send off after our regional meeting on Friday in Ashland, which was awesome. But I'll continue to be their regional engineer through June 30th at least, while Chuck works to backfill that position. So if there's folks out there that have an interest in that, you want to reach out to Chuck and make it known.
And Matt, as you know, you're the only 3rd person to ever fill that position since 1992. We've had great stability in that kind of position, and you bring, going through the interview process, the part that really was an edge that you had was all the different roles you played for us over the years, over extended period. And not only played them, you've done them all extremely well. And so we're very pleased and fortunate to have had you with us this long and to have you in this role. I'm very, very pleased to have you join us in this new capacity. And it is interesting. Your time as regional, field staff member is getting more acquainted with once again the sour operations and the KD operations here, which we try to keep you up to date on it, but it's a little bit different. But it's great that you're bringing that field staff experience, which, by the way, a lot of our folks in our OET leadership have that role. I'm an honorary, if you notice, CETS engineer. I think Chuck said I'm District 0. Got this many years ago, but thanks for joining us in your new capacity. We'll be willing to do that, and looking forward to working with you. And I know the staff is as well. So thank you, Matt.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's huge shoes to fill, as I've been saying, PHIL. But I'm up for the challenge, and I look forward to the work that we have going statewide. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I'll add a real quick comment here. Obviously, great to have Matt in this position. Definitely an awesome addition to the team at OET and what we do. But I really want to put a plug in there of no pressure on whoever fills that Region 7 CATS engineer position, but that 2 directors in the Office of Education Technology have come out of Region 7. So that's where I spent some time as well, way back farther than what Matt was doing there. But so anyway, that Region 7 position's a target. You better watch out.
And I know we'll be trying to fill that with a high quality person as well. And I know your predecessor, Frank Wells, was awesome. And of course, Mike in his role was awesome in that role. We've been fortunate to have some really great people in that, and intend to keep that tradition going. Thank you, Matt. On to our next topic is, as we talked about last meeting, we're going through the things we covered at the Kentucky K-12 CIO Summit in March and highlight more, feature those. And we talked about them, but circle back to them in our webcast each month and feature them. Last month, we focused on the finances that we talked about at the summit. This month, we'll be focusing on the cybersecurity. I sent you the responses from our 21 tables, which had approximately 80% of our Kentucky K-12 CIOs represented, which is a great representation that we get at that event every year. But I've asked Bob to kind of cover whatever he wants to cover from that. And I know you have some Go Soapbox questions we wanted to follow up on it. And I know this really started and triggered me to remember me as we were talking about how many folks have signed up, how many districts have signed up for that service, which is free by a federal organization that you can get as frequently as you want versus counting on someone to do that for you at KD level, OET level, or even having to do it yourself or hiring someone to do it. So, Bob, I'll turn this part over to you and give a recap of what you want to cover from
Sure.
history. Anything else you want to highlight during this time?
Cool. Thank you, David. And I also want to congratulate Matt and say how pleased I am that he's going to be joining us up here because, in my years of working here, which are 30 this month, Matt, it just is such a phenomenal and kind of ready to do whatever's necessary and also very steadfast in what he's doing. And so it's an honor to work with him. So,
and Bob, your background just is a former CATS engineer as well.
Indeed, yeah.
So,
Region 5.
Good pedigree there, along with all the other roles you played for us. I know one time as a teacher, and then with the birth of the longitudinal data system and the virtual high school, and in this role. And as I tell folks, and you know this, is I do think we have the best chief cybersecurity officer K-12 in the nation, and you, and I firmly believe that, seeing what we've done and how you do it. So, Bob, I'll turn it once again back over to you.
Thank you, David. I want to remind everyone that please go in and check out the questions in the Go Soapbox. I know we're kind of starting off early with cybersecurity, and so you may not have had an opportunity to jump in there and respond to those questions. And I do want you to go ahead and do that as we go through some of these other questions. The questions in Go Soapbox are all related to the 5th CIO Summit question, which was the CISA the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency free vulnerability assessment for your external stuff, the internet-facing stuff. But let's go through some of the other items first, because they're definitely worth looking into a little bit. There's some really good ahas in there, and maybe some things that maybe need a little more follow-up, to be honest with you. So I'm going to go ahead, David, and share my screen.
Okay.
Or share my document here.
I see it.
All right. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into this. Question number one, how do you get important cybersecurity information or communications to your superintendent? This has been something, these first two questions are pretty related, but obviously, if your superintendent isn't behind you with technology and cybersecurity, then you've got an even steeper hill to climb than you had before. And we want to do everything we can from our perspective and your perspective to try to get everybody on the same page. There have been some unfortunate events happen recently to some districts, and as unfortunate as those events were, in terms of ransomware hitting districts and data breaches, those superintendents have gone on to be advocates for cybersecurity in the other districts, and I think that's really pretty important. But aside from that, aside from that peer group talking, what sorts of things can you do? And some of the really good ideas or some things that I've kind of highlighted here and summarized a little bit. Really, some of the things that stood out to me were face-to-face and in-person communications with the superintendent, and that is key. Email is a great way to send lots of information, but having a direct conversation with someone and answering their questions as they have those questions has often been shown to be a game changer. And David, that's something that I've done with you very often. And instead of just sending you an email, I'll kind of sprinkle something on top first, and I'll come and meet you and say, David, we got to have a talk, and it's about this, and I'm sending you more information. Please take a look at that. And that has worked, being able to kind of back up my fear with data. And the data goes in the email, but that first communication, which is face to face, I think kind of gets the gears turning, greases the skids, that sort of thing. And that can turn into the next big aha that I feel like arose out of this group, at least for me, and that is having a strong relationship. And that strong relationship between yourself and your superintendent is super key, because once you develop that trust and you have that relationship, then when your hair is really on fire, or whatever you've got is on fire, my scalp in my case, then the superintendent's much more likely to go ahead and say, okay, let's pull the red handle and make things happen. And so that strong relationship, which really is another way to say trust, really needs to be there. And I think that every superintendent is probably going to err on the side of that, especially if you come up with your hair on fire, and you have the data to prove it. So I think that's a really good idea there. Then the third big thing that I saw, and I'm not going through every one of these things. Like there's an excellent point here from Table 5, visual data charts. That kind of goes into the data that I was mentioning. So I'm not going to go through everything that I've highlighted here, but I'm kind of summarizing them. But the third item was to not just focus on your superintendent, but to also focus on other leadership within your organization. And that includes things like your local board, your CFO, your attorney. Certainly your attorney is going to be someone who's going to go hand in hand with you and be very risk averse. And while sometimes that's a problem, it can also be a huge help. And the attorney may have superintendent's ear if you don't yet, and I think would be a great way to start with that. The CFO is probably one of those folks who, in addition to the data person, has the most to lose because they're in charge of the money, or they're in charge of probably not spending the money and not letting the money go away. And so you want to make sure that they're on your side as well. And so there were some really good ideas coming out of that, the different tables. And I wanted to summarize the ones that I thought were probably the strongest, and the ones that, frankly, I kind of relate to the most in what I've done here at Katy, to be honest with you. But I thought those were all really good. And I encourage everyone to read through all of these. You may not have. I encourage you to read all of these. There's going to be some nugget in there that probably is going to assist you with your district that, maybe none of the others have really done it, but that one is going to help you. And I really want all the superintendents to understand how important the information you guys have is and can be on the district overall. Moving on to question number 2, what's the best way to convince your district leadership to provide technology and therefore cybersecurity a permanent chair at the big table? That's something, we have this conversation a lot, and we have for 30 years now. And that's because we have lots of roles, lots of people kind of coming in and leaving. Superintendents aren't there forever, and neither are CIOs. And as these folks change, you need to kind of redo this, because a lot of folks come in and they don't really understand how important cybersecurity is to the overall effort of the district at this point. And they never really think about technology. And as David has said, a lot of our superintendents don't even know that Kentucky is fully connected in every district. And that's all part of that same conversation. We're fully connected. And here's what that means from a good and a bad, or more of a risk standpoint. Some of the items that I thought were really good here, and again, I'm not going to go through and read. Obviously, I thought a lot of these ideas were really, really good, especially table 2, scare them enough by explaining the potential threats.
You do that well to me, Bob. You do that well to me.
And that does work. I don't want to use the word scare, and I don't want folks to think that we're just trying to be threatening just to scare. The fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or FUD. I'm not trying to spread FUD out there, and I don't think any of you should either. You should always be able to back up what you're saying with some amount of information, whether it's the experiences from another district or your own experiences under a different superintendent, that sort of stuff. They just need to kind of understand the reality of the situation here. And I think the way I phrased it was to share stories, actual data from other districts, and explain the real threats. There's tons of threats out there. Some of them are a lot closer than others. And, they can be the barbarians that are at the gates, and they can be the barbarians that are, 10 miles away. And sometimes even things that might not be so big, but they're up close, may be the hottest thing you've got going right now.
And
But
Bob,
yes.
Bob, you do this really, not to interrupt your flow, but you do
no.
this really, really well for us, K-12 as a whole, but also at KD, the agency, and it really connects with Table 1, where you get facts information, and you're able to have and lead a conversation in a controlled way. And I like how Table 1 said, "Don't be a freaker outer." and you do that really, really well, of not being a freaker outer. And I think that's a key position to be in, and present some of these, quite frankly, scary conversations in a way that's manageable.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. And I think that is a really, that's an important point there. And again, it's all part of that, having the information with you. And I will say that there are times, though, when I have been freaking out. It's like, there is something that's red hot, but there's always something behind it. It's like, I'm freaking out, and here's the data. Here's why you should be freaking out too. And some of that, if I can, kind of not too much of a tangent, but when I realized how many people were trying to log in as KDE staff from other parts of the world and from the USA, that was kind of a freak out moment for me. And I feel really lucky that there were other folks here at KDE who saw that and went, "Oh my God, that is kind of worth freaking out. And we've got to do something about that to protect our accounts because, our password hygiene isn't up to snuff, that sort of stuff." And so that really helped motivate us to move forward. So maybe freaking out in a controlled way. Does that work, Marty? Okay. And then, get with the folks who have the most to lose. And some of the responses were here, figuring out who's the heavy influencer, the CFO. I think that's the CFO is someone who really also needs to be listening to you. And it all goes back to relationships, I think, and how in security, cybersecurity, it's the threat is sometimes so difficult to understand or challenging to see that we're almost people who have to convince other folks to do what we know the right thing is. If you need a new bus, it's pretty obvious. The data show you need a new bus. Or if you've got too many buses, the data show you've got too many buses. Cafeteria, so many of these things are more evident than cybersecurity. And we're getting to the point now where we have the tools and the data through reporting and looking at who's logging in, who's trying to log in, the number of times staff are phished, that sort of stuff. We all are beginning to get the sort of data that can help us talk about the threats and develop a relationship with the folks in the district so, they can begin to trust us and know that we're not just freaking out, that we do have an issue that we all need to address. And I think that can't be overstated, to be honest with you. I'm going to move on to the next one, which this one, was a little challenging. I don't even know. It's challenging. None of us have enough money for cybersecurity to secure 100% of everything, and we never will, because we don't even know 100% of what we need to defend against or secure. But I know that we all could be doing a little bit more, and some districts have more resources to spend on cybersecurity than others. And what I want to do is make sure or try to figure out a way so that there is less dependence on just KDE or less dependence on just one entity, especially if you're a small district, you've got one or two people or just one person. How do we, cast a broader net for how we secure ourselves and how we defend ourselves? Training is an obvious thing there. The more folks you have in your district trained up on cybersecurity and the risks and threats, the easier your job is. And it's easy for me to say that when we could do more training here as well. Everyone could do more training, but again, it has to be meaningful and it has to really hit the folks at the right time and in the right way. I think the idea of a virtual or shared team was pretty supported by most of the folks. And a separate team within a district, this table one is not really a reality with the current funding that exists. And I think as David has said in some of our previous meetings, the funding really isn't coming down to us right now, and we have to figure out a way to maintain or do more with less, or just make do. And this question was kind of preparation for some of that. And we may not do, we may decide that a virtual team is something that just isn't possible. Maybe we'll, I just don't know. But I really appreciate everyone's thoughts on this. Some of the ideas that came up We're training district staff to help. You might have some folks who might be leaders from a technology perspective in your schools. There might be digital coaches. They might be other folks, and getting some cybersecurity training to them. And it doesn't have to be something formal. It could just be making sure that they're super keyed up on what a fish is and that sort of stuff. But trying to get those folks a little more coached up to help might be important. Folks you already have there who might care. And again, having relationship with your leadership, I think, is important. Working with co-ops was an idea that came up a lot, and I think that that's nice. That's definitely something that can be looked at. Something I've encouraged folks to do is figure out who your local cybersecurity experts are in your community. Do you have companies locally that deal with technology and deal with cybersecurity, and do you know their names? If you have an emergency, can you call one of them and say, look, I'm having an emergency, I need some help. And if you have those folks there and you don't know their names, I encourage you to kind of introduce yourself. And again, going back to relationships, and odds are the people who run those businesses have kids in your school district, and so they might have some skin in the game that maybe they don't even know that you need help. And so I encourage you to reach out to those folks and see what they say. There's always a bit of risk, bringing someone into the family, if you will, and you want to bring in people who are able to be mature and keep a controlled look. So you might not want to bring in, your crazy uncle who, says he really understands cybersecurity and all that sort of stuff. So you want to be pretty careful about that. Collaborating with other districts. We actually have some of that going already, and we see that at Kisti, which I think is great. I've seen some of the sessions go from being all about working on Chromebooks to really, large numbers of districts talking about cybersecurity issues that they're having. And so I think to a certain extent we see that in some of the recent ransomware things that have happened. We've had some districts jump in and help out. And that's not the first time that's happened. We've had districts helping other districts for 30 years in CATS, and it didn't really matter what it was. We've always had districts reaching out to help. And I don't think that we need to discount that. I don't think we want that to stop. I think that that's something that I would like for us to always be ready to do if asked. Let's see here. Co-ops, collaborating, the virtual team. I'm not sure exactly what that means. That can mean lots of different things. When I was writing this, it was sort of like a kind of a floating team of people who multiple districts might utilize, but it could just as easy be a floating district folks. When I was first thinking about it, it might be just like a separate group of people who just decide to do that as on a contracting basis or something. But there are probably lots of different versions of that might work out. The co-op, districts helping each other, those are good. And I think that, there are other companies, and again, CISA, MSISAC can sort of be thought of in that same realm. Because if we're having issues with, our external vulnerability scanning that's provided by CISA, if that's who you're getting it from, they may be able to help if you have issues with what you're finding or with the scan results, for example. So it may not be one virtual team floating around. There may be multiple virtual teams floating around that we all kind of take advantage of. And so we'll kind of have to see how that works out. I want to give this idea more thought, especially because of some of the ideas here, and it kind of caused me to have some additional ideas about this as well. And again, we've kind of just barely scratched the surface of some of the free services from ISAC and from CISA. Some of one of the big reasons we've just kind of scratched the surface is they might have services that are free that would work great for a district that is not part of a larger enterprise, or that doesn't have so much cloud, or that has more cloud, or that, is who knows what. But we want to make sure that before we promote a free service within CATS, that it works in our environment. And so that's why some things are a little slower than we might think or might want. But we want to make sure that that things have had an opportunity to kind of go on a shakedown cruise before we become the first ones in the U.S. to try them out. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next question. And it looks like we've got some. Don't forget to go into the polls and answer some of those questions in there if you haven't already. I'm not going to jump over to those yet, but I just want to remind everybody while we've got question 4 up here. And this is definitely a big question. Question 4 from the CIO Summit was, do you want a cybersecurity playbook? And if so, what does that mean to you? What are the key features? So this was kind of all over the place. I think that some of the more common responses might be also some of the more difficult to do. Some folks wanted to know what to do in case of any security incident and any data breach. What are the steps to take? But don't give me tons of information. And so I need to kind of follow up with that, because I'm not sure it's possible to really go through the steps of the cyber incident in like as David likes to say, in a Twitter-sized post. I think that's kind of it's challenging for folks out there who've had a recent cyber incident, a recent security incident, a data breach. There were a ton of steps that you ended up taking, and each incident could be very different depending on the district and depending on what technology they have. As standardized as CATS is, there is a lot of differentiation among every district and between districts. There could be a high level view. There could be something like, if you think you have a data breach, reach out to Bob or reach out to the CAT service desk. I believe that the first step might be something that's going to be internal, though. The very first step is going to be, check something off internal and then start going through something else. So again, I love the idea of a playbook. I really appreciate the responses here. Again, but there has to be a fair amount of information to address different issues. So it's going to be kind of impossible to create a playbook that tells you exactly what to do in every case. I just don't think that that's going to be. I don't think that's viable right now. But a high level overview, maybe that's what folks are really saying here, might be worth doing. A kind of an incident response document. But again, you kind of have to tailor that to whatever your incident is. For example, let's say you've got a plumbing incident at your high school. A water break is way different from a stopped up toilet. And I have to say, I apologize for using those examples. I know that it might be not appropriate. I don't know. But they're both plumbing incidents. And so the incident response for both of those is going to be very different. And so a ransomware incident is going to be pretty different compared to just some viruses that get into your computer lab, or a call about a phishing call that your finance officer takes, and suddenly you've wired $3 million to some other country. Those are very different situations, and very likely would require very different responses. So it's going to be challenging to create a single incident response playbook for that. But I think at a broad level, we might be able to come up with something. I'll go back through here. There are some things that I thought were really kind of key. In table 2, they say they're working on a playbook, and it will be policies and procedures for things like what you can put on your device, the security on your device, measures for BYOD, bring your own device. And what that does, and this is super wise, is create a baseline of expectations for your district folks. And what that can help you do is eliminate a huge swath of potential risks and threats that might show up. So if you just let anyone bring anything into your district and get into any sort of district data or district systems, that's going to inherently bring more risk with it than if you require that person to only use the KD, or not KD, but your district owned device. At the same time, the flip side of that is also true. If you allow the folks who you're handing out laptops to put their own tax software on it and use that at home and let their kids play video games on it, you're introducing more risk to that device than you might really need to. And so having those policies and appropriate procedures, like a responsible use document, is going to be something that's really going to be worth its weight in gold for you. And I highly encourage you to do that. Some folks may do this in their acceptable use plan or their responsible use plan. I encourage you to go ahead and make sure that's happening, because the policies for those sorts of things like Internet of Things, BYOD, bringing your cell phones in, what you'll fix, what you won't fix, can you check email? Can you check your personal email on your work device? Super important stuff that you're going to want to check. So let's move on to the next question. And again, I'm not trying to minimize the impact of that question. I encourage everyone to go there and read that. If there's stuff that you feel like I need to know that I might be misinterpreting, please feel free to reach out to me and give me that. If you've got some ideas on that, I definitely appreciate it. So let's go on to question number 5, and this is all about CISA, and this is where we're going to jump over into the poll questions. Now, I did want to bring up this one, table 1, which, I'm just using them. Yes, districts will sign up as long as Bob agrees to sing. Well, I'm happy to do that. I assume that there may also be a flip side. Some districts may sign up as soon as I stop singing. So I'm willing to do whatever it takes here. Just let me know. I will come to your district and I will sing. So just let me know. So let's go ahead and move on to the poll questions. I'm going to stop sharing these and move on to the poll questions.
Can someone bring those up? I think those are 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, I've shared over to the website already.
Yeah. Marty, can you who's gonna bring those poll questions up and share them? Can you do it?
I think Bob has
Yeah,
them
I
up
can.
already.
Okay, Bob's gonna.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I can. So question number 3, in April, we challenged every district to implement external network vulnerability scanning, like the free service. Again, we've made it clear you don't have to go with this free service, but it is free. It seemed to be very high quality. It's been running for 7 or 8 years, but you could use your own service. You could roll your own free tools at your district. So clicking on this. So I'm really excited. We've got some pretty good numbers here. 33% are already done. Another 33% will be done by June, so that's pretty good. I'm pretty excited about that. And then 30%, it's on the list, but they won't be done by June, and that's okay. But I'm really excited that we have, around 90% of folks who are going to get that done here very soon. Pardon me just a second. All this talking, I'm not used to being able to talk about security, so a little parched. And then first I've heard of this, we've got one person, and if this is the first you've heard of it, get with me, or reach out to your CATS engineer. And let's talk about that because I definitely want to make sure that you get all the information you need about this service, what it is, why we're recommending it. It's super important in my opinion. So I'm going to go back to the event. Question number 4.
Bob, I don't think you're going to be able to sing. I mean, I can see what you're doing your voice. I don't think you're going to be able to sing. And Jennifer recommends a Freebird. So, if you're going to do it. So.
Freebird. I don't know.
Just ponder. You have
okay. I'll think. I was kind of hoping it might be something more of an Elvis Presley sort of thing, but that's okay. So question number 4, how are you planning? Because we're kind of interested. So we've got a large number of people headed towards CISA, and some with their own, some with a different service provider. Luckily, I'm about done because I don't think I can go much further, to be honest with you. So going back to the event. Oops, I clicked the wrong button. All right. And so I was pretty excited about the reports that we were seeing from the from CISA as well. And we've got some folks. Thanks, Marty. I appreciate that. You're a lifesaver. We have yes, and they are great. And I have to say they are great. Everyone got examples of those reports in the email that I sent out via your CATS engineer. So I encourage you to look at those. I'm going to have to kind of sign off here because my voice is gone. I'm done. So thank you all very much for listening.
Thanks, Bob. You can unshare that screen. So thank you for the. I do encourage folks to take a look at the whole thing, Bob. I think thanks for highlighting and going through those topics with us. And I do appreciate all the feedback folks give us during the summit and actually during this webcast here. Bob, the numbers are better than we talked about at lunch. So I'm encouraged by that to take advantage of the service. And I think this one thing that, a sense of urgency, if something were to happen, and which we hope doesn't have any district, what you don't want to have happen to you is the service was available and you had not signed up for it and not taken advantage of it. And it's well known out there. So encourage as a preventative measure in a lot of different ways for you to go ahead and sign up for that service, which I anticipate a very high percentage, or some service that does something similar for you, or you're doing it yourself pretty regularly. But that's encouraging. So that's good stuff. All right, we're moving on next to the status of our Kentucky K-12 EdTech contracts and RFPs and stuff we're implementing. So, Mike, let's start out with the next generation Kentucky Internet Service, NBKI.
So I can start out with that one, and I can run through all these and let other people chime in after I get done. So I'll start out with it there since you mentioned that. So on the contract side of things, the next generation K through 12 internet, we continue to move forward with. We are obviously nearing the end of the fiscal year, and part of what we are doing, just to make everybody aware, is we are working with ENA, our partner on that, about how we will handle if we do go into the month of July with some of our transitions. We've established some ways by which we can do that. If we need to do that, our goal is still to have all of the districts transitioned by the end of June. However, recognizing where we're at and some of the challenges that we've come across as far as being able to complete transitions, we have engaged in making provisions to be able to go into July if needed, and how we will go about doing that. So I want to say that because some districts will begin to hear some of the things that will be a little different as far as how we handle those transitions. Not really anything that significant, really just becomes a 2-phase transition as opposed to a 1-phase transition. So, but anyways, feel good about that, positive about that. We continue to move forward, and things are on track and moving forward. And again, we can circle back to that one and talk more about it if anybody's got any questions or whatnot. A couple other contract activities going on. We continue to implement the Kentucky Educator Credentialing System. That's something that continues to be in progress. I've got a couple more phases of activities that are associated to that. So folks will, may hear or be impacted by some of those things that are have been put in place and will continue to be put in place. Obviously, a significant initiative for the department and on behalf of all the school districts. The school report card continues to be that new contract continues to be worked on, and the things that will go in place to move that forward. And again, I'll allow Dee Dee to circle back and speak to that one with any of the details. A couple other things I'll mention around the contract side is a couple of CATS contracts that districts purchase from that are up for us to consider how we handle the renewals and so forth on the existing contracts to extend those contracts. One is the instructional device contract, which we are going to be renewing that contract and moving forward with that. It will stay under the status that it is, that it's available for districts to use. However, the requirement to use that has been kind of suspended, I guess is the word we've used. So that status will stay the same as we continue to move forward with extending that contract. And then the network contract is another one that will be coming up that we will be assessing and reviewing how we handle the renewal that is available to come up on it before we go into the next E-rate filing window, which is January. So we will provide clarification on how we're handling those contracts, I should say, moving forward well in advance of that time period. Another one under not specific to a CATS contract, but I guess we still put it under the umbrella of the CATS contract, is our Microsoft channel partner contract, which is now in sight. That was effective in April. I think everybody's well aware of that, but I just want to make sure that folks are paying attention to that, and that Insight is now the contract holder for those we'll kind of refer to them as off-the-shelf software items, and obviously specifically as the Microsoft channel partner. Switching real quickly to RFP and procurement activities that are going on, of which I will say pretty minimal things about each one of these, other than to say all of them are in some stage of the procurement process. And as I think everybody knows, we try to stay away from getting into the details too much because we're not supposed to, but about where those are at and where things are going. Other than, again, I'll say across the board for all these, they are all progressing forward with us to meet our objective of establishing new contractual arrangements, whatever those may look like at the end of the process. So we got the queues, connect to user experience, continuing to move forward. We got the internet content management continuing to move forward, the professional learning management system, the SEEK, which again, I'm not a SEEK. I know I'm supposed to spell that out and say what it means, but we all use SEEK. It's the way we fund the department funds school districts, and that's again in process. And we've mentioned it a few times before. And then the grant management application planning. Grant management and application planning, which I don't know that I think districts do touch that some, but certainly used at the department level. But again, I think districts do touch that as well. That's in process and proceeding forward, as well as a Commonwealth contract, which we use for Microsoft support services that we're paying attention to. Again, maybe less of a touch point for districts, but COT is establishing a new Microsoft support contract or pursuing that. And again, we're paying attention to that, and will certainly likely be a participant and utilize that contract in some form or another. So anyways, I just want to run through that whole list and then let anybody else chime in with any specifics on any of those that they want to beyond what I said.
Well, I'll hit on some. I'm going to ask some other folks too. I consider SEEK a win because that's been a homegrown application done by staff within the Office of Finance and Operations since the beginning of SEEK in the early 90s. And we were able to convince them to share and shift the risk from being a homegrown application, especially given the amount of money that it allocates out. It's a prime target for a cyber criminal to try to break into. And you want to shift that risk to someone that's watching that 24/7 and has the responsibility for it as people come and go and filling those positions. And so I consider that a win of convincing that office to go out for bid for a cloud-based system and to do that. So we'll be looking at that very, very closely, but I consider that a big win in a lot of different ways, but also just from a cybersecurity aspect and an easier way to maintain it going forward. Chuck, is there anything you'd like to add about the connected user experience that we can say at this point?
David, not really, nothing really beyond what Mike said. I mean, obviously, as we get through the procurement process, which we anticipate we are going to do successfully, and then we can start targeting, announcements, timelines, project work, implementations. Obviously, we'll convey that as soon as we know the results of those solicitations. But as of right now, to Mike's point, whether it's content management, whether it's queues, being in the middle of those processes, and as I've been around the state in a couple of regions, districts understand when you're in the middle of those processes, there's just certain things you can't talk about. All right. And I know everybody's tired of hearing that. All right. What I will just continue to say is we're optimistic that we're going to have solutions in place for the future of CATS, and everybody just stand by.
Dee Dee posted what SEEK stood for. It's Support for Education Excellence in Kentucky. That is SEEK. Dee Dee, any update? And Mike, you owe me 10 push-ups on the school report card suite.
No, we're moving forward with the suite. We are working with ANLAR right now. I do have a question out there about data we can get to a little bit later. There is going to be a couple changes this year as far as timelines. Some of these are statutory timelines for like Safe Schools. Safe Schools is still going to, for the safety data, they're still going to collect, and typically deal with Wendy Spalding on that. Collect it over the summer so they can meet their reporting by the end of August to the Center for Safe Schools and Office of Education Accountability. Those are both requirements for them to report by the end of August. So their collection on that data will be fairly similar. However, it will not be through the school report card. They'll be using the other reports within Infinite Campus to do that verification. The school profile report is going to take a different approach. For the folks working on that, they've decided just to delay. They understand there is an October 1 deadline for that posting to be available in the local board office, but they feel like it's explainable based on the fact that we don't have a vehicle to collect the data and report the data available in that time frame this year, and this will be just an exception for reporting this year. So that will happen later in the year. One cautionary statement on this is that typically we've done a lot of data verification over the summertime, and that works out good because it's prior to the SDRR opening for the verification on your assessment accountability. So a lot of things get fixed beforehand. It doesn't surprise me based on the survey results that people are going to wait till the fall and do that. Just keep in mind there could be some impact into your accountability and your assessment data being the same level of quality you've used to it being previously when the collection and the quality assurance piece of it happened earlier. And just as a reminder, just David, so I don't have to do push-ups, the suite does include multiple components. I'm not sure I can do a push-up. So the suite does include multiple components. And what we're talking about when we talk about the ANLAR piece is the piece that is like the data viewer of the charts and the graphs and the dashboards, all that kind of stuff. But the data will still be available in the data set view that we see in open house. And we're working on naming of all this stuff to try to make it a little easier for everybody to, talk about it. That is still going to come out for assessment accountability data, the same timeline we're used to. Probably mid-October is what we're expecting, even though the dashboard view won't come out probably until the middle of November or something like that. Our old school report card, from Brightbyte suite, part of the suite that we've previously had, is going to schedule to go away by the end of the middle of December. So we're hopeful the other card is up and going before then, so we don't have a break in any service. We have no reason to expect that we're going to have a break in service, but we extended that as far as we could into December as a just in case scenario.
No push-ups, Dee Dee. You came close on one. I'm going to let you slide on it. It's pretty good.
And what's interesting is I've been really good lately of saying SRC charts and graphs. The
charts and graphs as a piece that you're not going to find once we replace this portion of the school report card suite with. You're not going to find an SRC school report card at .com. That is going to go away. It might be out there as a redirect just for a little while, but you won't see that URL used. So that means that everybody is going to have to change their URLs that are posted on their schools and districts website when we get this all set up for in the fall.
And just to give you some background on it, is folks were waiting for it to be in the third component of the suite. And I wanted to remove that compression. And for the assessment results is go ahead and, put it in the second component, which is the data sets, which is, be honest with you, which is 99% of the folks wanted in that versus the charts and graphs portion. And so people were getting confused and putting all this compression that the agency couldn't release it until it was the third component of the school report card suite, which was previously done by Google, Bright Bytes and Google, and now ANLAR. And so I'm purposely removing that compression to say the data about assessment can get out there much earlier by releasing it in the second component of the school report card suite versus waiting for it to be in the charts and graphs of the third component. So that's what that's about.
So David, I did share the Go Soapbox results, and we have a lot of people that are choosing to either they're not the right person, they're choosing to let other people know. So if they're letting other people know, remember the part about data not syncing to state edition if it's into the new school year. So little cautionary statement there, but everybody's going to do what works best for them, and we definitely understand that.
Yep. Marty, anything you want to go in detail about the official learning management system?
David, just briefly, as Mike said, that process is going well and it's progressing forward. As a reminder, and we've mentioned it in the past, but it's nice to bring up again. This is a professional learning management system for statewide professional learning offered by the Kentucky Department of Education and partners. This is target is for all adults that would need professional learning that generally would be published or hosted by the KDE. And so you can think about it in terms of, going through courses or modules, whether that's, kind of synchronous or asynchronous learning, and all offices from the Department of Ed, including even our transportation folks, have professional learning that is important for transportation directors. And so it's moving forward very well. And I think it'll be something to announce soon.
Thanks. Under our next topic is updating, modernizing, renovating the OET portion of the KD website. This has been in the top 5 feedback of our staff and of our districts. And so we're going to move, we've initiated a project to stop talking about it and to make it actually happen. A good first step has happened, and this goes back to certain decisions were made, were right for the time, but not now. But many years ago, the decision was made for the KD website itself not to list education technology at the top, but instead putting underneath services for schools and districts, which was fine. But however, that thing is so long, you can't see education technology is at the very bottom called technology. So we had a win of actually raising it up so it's visible in schools and districts. And we're actually trying to move it to the next step up to actually having as one of the main components you see on the website. And once again, historically, going way back, folks were pushing back here of listing things by that type of thing, and more open to it now. So we're going to hopefully have education technology visible once we land on the KD portion of the website. And once again, this is just talking about the OET portion, not the whole KD portion of the website. What can we do? We're working on the landing page, the first part, and I would say there's 3 parts of what's. We are looking at what key components that as our office want to make sure that we want to market and highlight and educate on other forums, others about OET and what our school districts are up to in education technology. And to be very upfront with you, we're going to pull a majority of that from items in the KETS master plan, the 2024 to 2030 KETS master plan. We're just going to list them down there. There'll be things like our areas of responsibilities, areas of emphasis, the infographic, the digital readiness, historic moments, the budget, the tech planning, even part maybe the one pager that we provided to the upcoming Commissioner Fletcher. And then there's a second part, and this is where you can be really helpful. I know we have 2 Go Soapbox questions 6 and 7, and 2 discussion questions around this. what beyond number one, the parts that we want to pull out from the master plan, is the content that's most requested and needed by our school districts, our students, our teachers, your all staff, KD and OET staff, our KETS partners and vendors and general public. So we have a couple ways to get the information. One is we got the statistics of who's going to what on our KDAC website in the OET portion, and we can make sure the things that folks want to see the most are up there, most visible on the landing page. And I think we found in our OET portion, DD, as I think is e-transcripts was a very top thing that districts were looking on our website. So we'll have that in a very pronounced way, but we'll let the stats draw that, identify that. We ask our KETS field staff to ask you all what are the top things you want to see immediately. EdTech contracts, for example, were the things that popped up. So that will be in that second section on the landing page. There's a third item. What are the items that our staff point people to the most on the OET portion of the website? For example, I get 10 or 15 requests per day, every week of the year, by vendors wanting to meet with me. And their top thing they ask is, I want to meet with you, David, so you can tell me what your top priorities are. And what I point them to is two things. Is I point them to our master plan, and I point them to these webcasts. If they want to see the most current things that we're up to, the things that are most important to us, they can self-help, much like a service station. There's very few, except I think you can go to New Jersey where you have to go somebody fill up your gas. Most everything else around the United States is you go fill it up yourself. And so we're trying to have this so it's self-serve as much as possible. And so the master plan, to be honest with you, is going to be a guiding principle for a good portion of our website. We'll take a look at all the portions into that. And what do we need to point people to? We're also in parallel cleaning up the existing parts. We're not waiting for this perfect design and solution. There's a lot of this can move in parallel and will move in parallel versus waiting for 100% perfect to be put in place. So I've asked all of our staff, and you guys can help with that too, all the folks that are watching, what are the items on our current portion of our OET website that no longer serve a purpose or need to be removed? We've had a couple examples that we have the COVID-19 sections that at one time served a great purpose. They don't serve a purpose now. We also have items on there that we need to keep updated, but for sure we need to update, for example, their expiration dates. For example, the contracts is an example for me, is what is the latest possible contract date that contract can be extended? Because I point tons of vendors to our site that are interested in bidding, and what I would like for them to see is the potential for how long that contract can go. And there's optional years, but I want them to see is it can go all the way to 2029 with the optional years beginning in 2025. And that just helps them as well. So we have that effort going, and appreciate any input. And once again, we're gonna let data drive it for the second section, the first section, and we'll get your feedback. And this will all be on the landing page. What are the key components of KETS we want them to know about? And number two, on that same landing page, what are the most popular things that folks want? And number three, what do we point people to a lot that we can just point to, like go on the landing page and you'll find it there. And obviously those will be very fluid and change over time. And so let's go to question, if you can bring up for me question 6 and 7 on the Go Soapbox, and let's see what folks responded to that. What about?
Let somebody else do it. I'll do it if nobody else is.
Okay.
You see it okay?
Yeah, you should. I've got it pulled up here.
Oh, you already got it?
Yeah, so we're going to do something about outdated, not relevant. Whoa, oh, there we go. The navigation, for the most part, for almost any website you can put a title in and go find it. But we're going to try to, on the landing page, make it much more visible. And even as you go in it, there are certain parts of the website, when you start trying to go backwards, you can't go backwards without coming all the way back to the beginning. So that's a technical thing that's got to fit. But we're mainly focusing on the what right now, the three whats, the three main components of what do we want to market and share, what is it that folks need the most, and what do we point people to the most? Okay. Thanks. And how about question 7? Yeah. Okay. Okay, EdTech specific, it's going to be that. And that's the most popular one, 50%. Okay. All right. Dee, did you ever get your question? I mean, the only question we haven't covered, I think, is the front porch question. You want to show that one?
Sure.
Show that one while you're in the mode.
David's thinking front porch, front door.
I'm sorry.
It's a beautiful day out there. I want to be on the front porch too.
It is. That's right.
So it's a front door project. That's the project we do every year to try to make sure that all of our schools and our district board offices are mapped on the Commonwealth map that is used for a lot of different purposes. We did get over 20 updates this year. And we got like 9 photo updates. So a good response. This isn't something everybody has to do every year. It's really something that if you have a new school, you have a school that changes location, maybe the door changes or a district board office that moves, there's a need to do this. Otherwise, you're off the hook for that year. So we do have a couple districts that did say they would like to, and I pulled the wrong one up. So they would like to have a little extra time. We can give you that. If you have any questions about this and you're like, oh gosh, I didn't do it, how did I miss this? Reach out to KDE data request at education.ky.gov. Ryan's available to assist there, and he's glad to help you out there. Or just tell us how long you need, because what we'll do at the end of the time frame is it just ended on 15th was our due date, so we're not overdue by much. We just take all the changes and send them to the Office of Commonwealth Office of Technology so they can update the map. So let us know what we can do to help.
And I was looking to see if we have any responses to the discussion questions.
Yeah, David, we actually have two. We
Yeah.
have some good responses in the discussion questions, which is also a good prompt for others. If you can take some time and respond to those, that'd be helpful too.
Yeah. I'm just looking at them. We got one response to question 2 about technology standards was answered to question 2. Okay, and then we have something, does the building wire checklist document still exist? And where can we find that, and some other suggestions there. So thanks. And I'll talk about the Social Security one here in a bit. It looks like about the diet, I'll just hit on that, is high school's only collecting for keys, and then pre-K is stopped. Okay, we're going to talk about that a bit. So let's talk about the affordable connectivity program. During the past 2 weeks, news media has been contacting KD agency for feedback on what impact does that mean with the program ending in April. And so what I've taken the opportunity to is educate them on both the connectivity that we have in our school districts. By the way, not one reporter I talked to was aware all schools were connected. I know I keep on hitting that, not one of them. It is a mind-numbing type of thing that the level that folks don't know the connectivity that our schools have and how long that's been in place. So I always take that opportunity to educate them, because they're always like, when we're going to get internet for these kids, not realizing they've had it in all the schools since '95 statewide. Then I point them to the infographic and the digital readiness report when I get those, so the reporters can see the progress we have both within the school buildings and beyond the school buildings, and that we've been tracking internet access beyond the school campus for about 10 or 15 years. And even before the pandemic, had a pretty good handle on it. They're always surprised that 40 or 50% of our students, they always want to come up, well, my understanding is 50% of the students don't have it beyond the school campus. And they're significantly off. And so that's another shocker to them, that the amount of access that students have beyond the school campus is not 100% perfect, but there's an extremely high percentage. And you don't forget the folks that don't have it, that do have enough internet beyond the school campus to do the schoolwork. And there's, when you actually get down to percentage of K-12 students that don't have it at their home, it's a really, really small percentage. And I'm not saying you write that off, but the reason I tell the news media is you want to get that right. When you have a really small percentage, getting the remaining 2% of students is much more doable than saying the thing is 40 to 50%. folks won't even listen to you. Say, we just got 2% to go. Then it becomes a much more doable task. So be accurate when you're talking about it. And we have the remaining part, we have an X percent of that. I think it was around 96.5% have enough at their home now, with 1.5% not having enough at their home. So we're at 1.5%, with 3% something close by. So they were asking, what is the impact of the affordable, of the ACP program going away? Will we see a significant drop in internet usage and availability of K-12 homes? And I tell them a couple of things. What we found, and I think this has a lot to do, and I've said it for many years, with Kentucky having to be the first state to have internet to all of its schools, the students got used to it and started asking their parents, I want that too at home. Kentucky has always been a leader as far as having access, just not on the school campus, but beyond the school campus. And so we have a very high percentage of low-income parents. I think 54% of our Kentucky K-12 students are eligible for free and reduced lunch. But what we found is K-12 parents are more likely to find a way to have internet access at their home than non-K-12. And that goes way back, going from the beginning of dial-up all the way to today. Parents, and all the parents realize this, or those that are raising kids in some kind of capacity, you're going to go to great lengths to provide them a good run and go the best you can. And so what we found before the pandemic is 95% of the homes, and right at the beginning of the pandemic, when we did a name and claim, 95% of Kentucky homes had enough internet to do schoolwork. 2% did not have anything there, and 3% were close enough to go someplace by. And then after the pandemic, that's up from 95% to 95.5%. And that's probably just a natural progression of increased internet capability. So what I tell folks, and I'll be interested in your feedback, is the ACP program, I don't suspect, is going to have a significant and overwhelming impact on dropping the amount of internet access for Kentucky, the students of K-12, because those parents are going to go back to finding a way. And what the ACP program paid for is approximately $360 a year of internet access. It was $30 a month. Now, what I do tell folks is do publicize the other ways they can get funding. Now that $30 is going away, the federal Lifeline program still exists. That's $10 a month. And a good number of these internet service providers offer discounts for low-income families. So you get $10 off on on the federal Lifeline program. You approach the telco company and you say, I'm in this situation. A very high percentage, not all of them. And it may not cover that entire $30. The issue we have is, all of us have, and this is across the country, is making low-income parents aware of these options and helping them walk through it. And that's always been the difficult part. Kentucky was a leader in the percentage of K-12 homes that took advantage of ACP. We were one of the nation leader. I think it's 54%, 56%, something like that. National average is 44%. 54%. National leader. Very proud of that. I don't suspect a very high percentage of that folks that no longer get it will no longer provide it to their children. I think they'll find a way, but we want to make them aware of the Lifeline program, which probably only had a 10% adoption rate here in Kentucky from up to 54. So make them aware of that $10 per month, and then make them aware of the approach to telco providers to see if they provide discounts to them. We do get telco providers and internet service providers approaching us and saying, KDHC, can you give us the names of kids on free reduced lunch? And there's something called FERPA that prevents us from doing that. While great intentions, we can't do that. So we need to get the word out to the parents to help them. Found a way beforehand, and I suspect a very high percentage will find a way of afterward, but we'd like to get them all across the finish line. So that's an update on ACP. Marty, anything else? I know you've helped me track this throughout this time of its birth. In 2022, I think the ACP program was birthed and it was not renewed by the National Congress.
That's right.
To expire in April.
Yep. So that wind down period is already closed, and households have been notified. If the questions come up locally in our schools and districts, it would be handy to be able to, assure that that program is ended, and because there is some confusion still out and about. David, just to emphasize one more point that, and you said this a couple different ways, but to emphasize, our households in Kentucky were so far along with connectivity and internet access that while affordability is still the prime hurdle and target across the country, and the ACP program helped close that divide in many states. For us, the 0.5, and there's research tied into here at some point, but 0.5% growth is all we experienced in Kentucky through the ACP program, from prior to ACP to after ACP. So 0.5% growth. It's worth noting that that is normal growth for us, regardless of this program. And so just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah, it may have nothing to do with ACP, right? Mike, you're going to give us an update on the federal E-rate audit results, real quick one. Those went well, but it was long.
Yeah,
when we
there's
get
not
to the
much.
finish line.
Not much to say. I think we've mentioned a couple of different times the fact that we were undergoing an E-rate audit of the consortium that we operate on everybody's behalf for the E-rate program. It was for the funding year 2020, in which I think we received a little over $12 million in that year on behalf of all school districts. But anyway, so this audit, I guess I always want to tag an audit as a necessary evil. Obviously there's benefits that can come out of audits, especially if you have them yourself. But anyways, when you have an audit brought upon you, usually you consider it a necessary evil and a distraction. But anyway, this audit went on from well over a year, from July of 2022 to March of 2024. And the result of that was no findings, which is a good thing. We interacted with the auditors off and on during that time period. Still you learn a lot. I think they learned a lot, quite honestly, but you learn a lot. And, they had a couple of incidental matters that they pointed out that were pretty insignificant. They're not part of the final report or anything. The report, as we have been advised, will have no findings. That report has not went through the final process of being reviewed and approved by the FCC yet, but we expect that to happen, pretty much just to be a process step that has to happen. So anyway, good news that the program overall, when we go through an audit that is of the consortium, again, for the whole state of Kentucky, as far as the things we interact with on behalf of all the districts, went well. And so thanks to all the team members that make it that way. We got several team members throughout the life of us working with the E-rate program that has allowed that to be the case, that we operate that program pretty efficiently and pretty effectively. So thanks to everybody.
In Office of Education Technology, we have folks assigned and make sure we have good liaison, just like we do with districts. We also do that for all the offices to make sure we have good working relationships. And they have multiple duties as assigned, as Paul Shoemaker does for our staff. But Paul is our liaison with the Office Assessment Accountability. He's very trusted by them. He's seen as a person in their team huddle. And he does a good job of preparing folks for all kinds of online testing, including the K-Prep testing that we're involved with now. I always think this is a good way to give high fives to us on this effort, because it's a team effort between the technology and the internet service providers that we have, between the Office Assessment Accountability that we have out there, the testing provider that we have. And don't take it for granted, because nearly every other state around us that does online testing fails miserably to this scale. I never say, folks, that we take too much for granted. This is happening everywhere. It's happening virtually nowhere else. So Paul, what's the results? I didn't see the results today so far, so I'm assuming everything's still going well.
Everything's going very well, David. And to reinforce what you just said, I wanted to give a thank you to all the district tech staff for working with your DACs and BACs and preparing your schools for online testing and making it a good experience for your students. Your efforts make this program work, and we really appreciate that. We're winding up the KSA testing window. We've got a couple of weeks left. We have hit 1,577,000 successful tests, and that's that's no hay. We're really far and above all the other states in being able to accomplish this. Our 1-day testing peak total this year was 242,606 tests. We hit that back on May 8th, and we broke last year's record by about 2,200 tests in a single day. So it has been going extremely well. And once again, thank you for making all this work.
Thanks, Paul. And don't take it for granted. Thanks for all the partners that we have in OEA and internet service providers that provide schools and districts through even our transition KH3 and now ENA. Both those have stepped up along with Pearson. So thanks. It's worth giving a high five. Let's talk about the status of Social Security numbers. We did a closed session last webcast on it and had some good progress. I met with Kentucky Stats last week and found that very encouraging. That staff, Matt Berry, is the director, and he brought a staff member with him just to kind of talk about this new environment that we have that has changed over the past 25 or 30 years around Social Security numbers. We have now unique student identifiers. That doesn't exist. That didn't really exist 25 years ago for example, Infinite Campus and Munis and KEX has that in our professional standards board system. Cyber criminals, more so than ever. That's changed significantly over the past 25 or 30 years, are targeting K-12 organizations, in particular for Social Security numbers. We find that within districts, they use virtually Social Security numbers 0% of the time. And then the fourth big change is I've looked at other Department of Educations around the nation. Virtually no Department of Education around the nation and within their student information system collects Social Security numbers. They use some other method for matching between different state agencies. And so those are four big changes. So I've been meeting and plan to meet with the agencies that are still power users of Social Security numbers. I met with Kentucky Stats. I'll be meeting with Kentucky Higher Education Authority, and even here within KD with Community Nutrition about a couple of different things. We call it the healthy data diet. I'll just give an example for Kentucky Stats is, the question I asked them is, if we can't eliminate them 100%, how can we reduce them significantly? And, an easy one is the stuff that you have stored that you no longer need, get rid of those. But also, though, just the age groups. For example, Kentucky Stats is, do you really need freshmen, sophomores, and juniors? Or is seniors enough? Why can't that be enough? And if it is just seniors, why can't it just be maybe the last four of the Social Security number? So you're not trying to get to an absolute. Maybe over time we can convince them to get totally off. And because these other states, once again, have found a way to match these other state agencies. They have longitudinal data systems and other systems exterior to the K-12. These other agencies really have moved away from Social Security numbers for all the reasons I mentioned there. So I found Matt Berry very receptive, understanding of this massive attack that we're under in K-12 of cyber criminals, more so than any other type of organization, and to take that seriously, which they do. And to move to other ways, like with unique student identifiers for the freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, for example, to do what they need to do, and then maybe the seniors use the Social Security number, or even the last four of it. So I found that open-mindedness of not just staying stuck in the past 25 or 30 years of Social Security numbers, saying, well, this thing happened 25 or 30 years ago, so we're going to stay with Social Security numbers, even though things have changed dramatically over 25 years. And so if you were to have a big breach and you say, well, I'm stuck in 25 years ago, when you recognize these things around you. So I did want to give a high five to Kentucky Stats. We do have a meeting with KIA, Kentucky Higher Education Authority, in mid-April or mid-June. And I have continued discussions with Community Nutrition. So I consider that good progress. Mike, any kind of update? I know we just want to share about our extension for ESSER funds. In particular, we're targeting on DD, you're aware of this, for Infinite Campus registration and campus learning. along with Q's is way up there high on that list. Anything else we want to share real quickly about?
No, I think just everybody to be aware of that is we do have the opportunity to be part of the application for the department on behalf of, different variety of different things that benefit all school districts for this liquidation extension, which does extend the amount of time that is available to utilize ESSER money. So we've got several different items that we're including on that list and that will be part of that application to be able to have that extension for several more months. I think it's about 18 more additional months to utilize those funds. So we'll be keeping people advised as we make progress on that. Again, working with the Office of Finance and Operations, the Commissioner's Office, and several other. It's definitely a department effort to move forward with that application.
And the other offices and the Commissioner's Office have been very receptive, as I said, is during ESSER. And these are discretionary funds that we can directly apply for in OET. We got the highest percentage of any office in KDE. So we were very successful, and that helped us get up to 500 million. And I talked about being unsuccessful in the legislative session and having the legislature increase the CATS baseline additional budget request, but we were incredibly successful with ESSER. And so we feel pretty good about, not 100% certain that we're going to be able to get that extension to February 2026. We're giving that a good at bat and feel good about it. And we have people supporting us to help make that happen. And basically part of this is help us buy some time until the next major legislative session to try to get the additional budget request this time. Not only a board priority and the governor's office priority, but get it through the House and Senate the next time. And we spent a lot of time on that last webcast. Last item we have here is about some professional growth learning opportunities this summer. I do want to tell our staff and to the districts, everybody's worked hard this year. We have a busy summer, but I do encourage you to take some time off. The kind of refresh and recoup and reset your batteries a bit this summer. Don't wait till December timeframe to do that. Take some time off this summer with family and friends and for yourself to recharge a bit. But Marty, in doing that, what are some of the professional learning opportunities this summer that you want to make people aware of?
Yeah, thank you, David. I think it's important to help recharge. It's a moment of learning or digging into, being able to separate or disconnect from day-to-day operational kind of work and go into learning something new is also a recharge moment and really good during the summertime. There are several opportunities that we just wanted to give a shout out to, both from technical learning, so technical skills and learning new technical skills, to using technologies in the teaching and learning space. Many of our Kentucky educational cooperatives have some opportunities, and just wanted to nudge or push on connecting there and additionally regionally to kind of ask those questions of, hey, do we want to do a technical learning session on something very specific in that region? I know our field staff would love to kind of be a part of that conversation, but also the Innovations for Learning Conference hosted by Fayette County Public Schools. That's June 4th. That's always an awesome event. And I think over the last several years, they continue to get more and more district folks coming from obviously outside of Fayette County, but I don't want to state a number, but I know the number that of districts across the state who sent folks to the Innovations for Learning Conference amazed me. And so I'm sure the Fayette County team and can share that. June 11th and 12th is the Murray State Teaching and Technology Summit. We're excited about that one. Connected to using technologies in the learning space, the Kentucky Reads to Succeed Summer Reading Conference is June 20th. There's some PBL Works, Summer PBL 101, which has, that's in May and June both. That has some technology impact as well. The Castle Summer Refresher for our library media specialists. There's always great technology connections in that. We certainly have awesome Teach Meets. Teach Meet Southeast Kentucky is July 15th. Teach Meet Eastern Kentucky is July 16th. Teach Meet Central and Northern Kentucky is July 17th. And then Teach Meet Western Kentucky is July 18th. And then finally, KET, it has a summer learning series. That's July 24th, 25th, 29th, and 31st. That's not all, but we just wanted to shout out and give a mention to some of these events that are being led by Kentucky folks for Kentucky folks, and great learning opportunities, whether that's leveling up our technical skills or leveling up our using technologies to impact learning. So thanks, David.
We also have the Kentucky Digital Summit on June 11th. I'll be talking about artificial intelligence again in that one.
Yeah.
And so I know we have X number of our OET staff, but it's available for districts as well to join if they want to join as well. Well, once again, thanks for joining us in this May edition. And we'll have some stuff in June, but until then, I hope you get some time off and enjoy the good weather. And I'll be hanging out here. We can go ahead and end the YouTube portion of it. I'll be hanging out on our team.